this morning as we move along in John, our text is going to include, we're going to come across a familiar verse, I hope, to many of us. It's one of the great expressions of what it is to love somebody, where Jesus says, greater love has no one than this, than what? Lay down his life for his friends. And usually when we look at that verse, we think first and foremost of it about Jesus laying down his life, but a lot of times we also apply that verse in other situations, even outside of Christian faith, of thinking about people who lay down their lives. On the battlefield, for example, those who served in wartime, and those who have laid down their lives for their comrades in arms. Or some of the mass shootings that we've had in this country, somebody who steps in front of their friend and takes a bullet instead of them. We hear those stories. We also think about it as it applies even in the medical field, as somebody who gives maybe an organ, a kidney for somebody else, or especially in the case when somebody actually dies and their organs might be given to somebody else so that there is life in that way. And sometimes I think we almost glamorize or honor highly those situations, and we wonder, we would ever even be able to fit ourselves into what Jesus is talking about there. But I want to suggest to you that there's more to this thought that Jesus has for us than those situations like that. And to do that, we have to look at the whole context of what he's talking about in this. And so a lot of groundwork and background and pull things together before we actually look at that text itself. And so maybe there is something that we need to hear and be challenged by. So I invite you then to turn in your Bibles to John chapter 15. I want to start reading verse 9. Let's pray. Father, come now by your Spirit upon us, upon this reading of your word, upon my words, and upon the meditations of our hearts, that we might hear more and more of what it is to really be a follower of Jesus, a friend of Jesus, and what that looks like. In Jesus' name we pray. Let's stand together in honor of God's word as we now read from John chapter 15, beginning of verse 9. This is the word of God. Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now, remain in my love. If you obey my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have obeyed my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last. Then the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. This is my command: love each other." Friends, grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of our God stands forever. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. Well, anytime we are going to look at what Jesus might say and what that has to do with us, maybe the starting point is to think about our own relationship with God through faith in Christ and what that might look like or how that comes about. And we have to get that right from the start, because if we don't, then we pretty quickly can get off track. And look at what Jesus says here in this text. He sounds pretty Presbyterian. He says, "You did not choose me, but I chose you." That really gets to what the doctrine of election in Reformed theology that is bedrock of Presbyterian understanding. And, good Christians from different perspectives can look at things differently and argue that. But at least here in this text, Jesus sounds like a Presbyterian. You didn't know he was Presbyterian, did you? All right? You did not choose me, but I chose you. And when you think of those disciples that he's speaking to, they were not people who kind of came around following this rabbi as sort of groupies and say, "Oh, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me." But instead, Jesus intentionally went to them where they were, mending their nets by the Sea of Galilee, sitting at the tax collector's booth, wherever else they might be, and said, could you come? I'm choosing you. You follow me and come and follow me. When you think about that, when I think about that, and God's call on my life, we sang about amazing grace, and God's grace poured out. It's not by anything that I can do or anything that the rest of us can do to present ourselves to God. God, in His mercy, has called and chosen us, and that comes by grace. And as we think about that grace by which we are saved and come into a relationship with God, though, we need to consider really what the purpose of God's choosing us really is. And it's not just so we can feel blessed and feel wonderful and know that we're going to go to heaven or anything like that. But Jesus says, I have chosen you and appointed you to bear fruit. Remember last week we talked about the vine and the branches and the fruit, and Jesus is the vine, that part of the plant that gives the life and the sustenance to the rest of the plant. And then there are the branches, the disciples, the followers, who are in an integral part of that, and they're the ones who will ultimately bear fruit. So our call then as the chosen ones of God is to do more than just sit around and bask in the blessings of being God's people. But we are called and chosen for a purpose, and that is to produce fruit. Or another way to say that is to say that we've been called and we are servants of God. We're called to service. And Jesus says that's what we are, or at least that's what we were when He's talking to the disciples. He says, I no longer call you servants. In other words, at one point, that's what he considered them to be. And the Greek word there is the word doulos, which refers to somebody who does his or her master's bidding without really knowing what's going on. It just follows along and does that. And it's not necessarily a demeaning or derogatory kind of a label on somebody. In fact, there are some pretty important people in the Bible who can claim that title. If you go back into the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, but there was a translation of the Hebrew Old Testament that went into Greek called the Septuagint. So that's all Greek. The same word doulos shows up then in that translation, referring to Moses, Joshua, David. Coming to the New Testament, Paul calls himself a servant of Christ. James takes that title himself. That's some pretty good company, wouldn't you say, to be servants with and to think of ourselves as servants? And we can't forget that piece. Servants are called to obey what the master says. Right? We're not co-rulers with God. Or, you've seen the bumper sticker with the front license plate, God is my co-pilot. God is not my co-pilot. God is my pilot. And we need to recognize that God is my pilot, God is my king, God is my Lord, God is the one who is sovereign over me, and I am simply a servant. But we don't stay simply servants, because Jesus said on His initiative, raises that level, and He says, you are now my friends. It implies a greater intimacy. Now you're more in on the middle, the center of what's going on, and you know more about that. Friends. And once again, there's some great men in the Bible who had that title. Go back into the Old Testament. Abraham is known as a friend of God. Moses, friend of God. Wow. And now Jesus calls us and says that we are His friends. I mean, what better company, right? What a privilege to be called a friend. We even have a hymn like that, right? What a friend we have in Jesus and all the privileges that we have with that, right? But before we get too touchy-feely about what it means to be a friend, BFF or whatever it is now, that terminology, let's look at what Jesus says about how that friendship is to be expressed. And the focus is on obedience. Let me just remind you of some things that we looked at a couple weeks ago. In chapter 14, verse 15, Jesus says, if you love me, you will obey what I command. In 14:21, He says, whoever has my commands and obeys them He's the one who loves me. Verse 23 there, Jesus said, if anyone loves me, he will obey my teaching. And then in our text today, verse 10, Jesus says, if you obey my commands, you will remain in my love. And then verse 14, he says, you are my friends. You're my friends if you do my command. Obedience is a huge part of that. Even though we are thinking in terms of friends with Jesus, it's not just this buddy-buddy kind of thing. But it's a call really to even greater obedience. That this is how we show our love to our friend, Jesus. And that is by obeying his commands. And if you remember, going back even a few more weeks ago, we looked at the new commandment that Jesus gave in chapter 13. Remember, this whole section that we've been in John's Gospel from chapter 13 through 17 is one long conversation, one long discourse of teaching. And so there are themes that, come up during this time that Jesus had with his disciples. And there Jesus said, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Expanding on the long-standing Jewish commands to love God, to love your neighbor, which people had been seeking to obey, maybe not perfectly or anything like that, but to follow on that. But then Jesus raised the bar a bit, if you will, and we saw the challenge for it is to love one another in the body of Christ. Not easy. The church hasn't always done that real well. But it doesn't, to be a friend isn't always easy. Jesus, still keeps that costly discipleship in there. In fact, it's almost more of a challenge of how to do that if we're going to friends. So now we come then to this expression about laying down your life for your friends and what that means. And the background is to remember that we have been chosen by God, by His grace. We have been called and chosen with a purpose, which is to bear fruit. And we are called to obey Him first as servants, and then we've been given a place of honor as friends of Jesus, still to obey. And out of that, then, comes this call to lay down life. What might that look like? Well, for Jesus, the picture is pretty clear, of what He's talking about there. We have the cross here. We started off singing this morning, the old rugged cross, right? With the cross, I have a cross around my necklace, around my neck, and maybe you too. We don't wear a manger symbol around, or put on a manger symbol on top. Even though Christmas is important, the idea of God coming to us, it's the cross that is at the center of our faith and speaks of what God has done to lay down the life of Jesus. Jesus laid down His life for His friends, and He died so that we would be forgiven and be reconciled to God. And here He is saying this the night before. He knows this is going to be happening within 24 hours of this time. And that's how He is going to express His love. Well, certainly we can't duplicate what Jesus did. Maybe there's a remote possibility that we would actually put our physical lives on the line for somebody else. And there are people who do end up doing that. But let's think about what this means within the context of the kingdom of God. Church. There are Christians today in other parts of the world who are literally laying down their lives for Jesus and for one another through persecution. It's increasing. And there are many who are faithful to that. But many, too, who, may just, get cold feet or something, But that's nothing new. They fail out on that. Think about Peter. St. Peter, something good about him, right? We call him. But, just a little bit before this in chapter 13, Peter said to Jesus, I will lay down my life for you. And what does he do within a couple hours? Denies him. Oops. He does redeem himself, though, because later on, years later, church tradition says that Peter was martyred. Peter did lay down his life for Jesus. Well, we're not there, at least not yet. But what might it mean for us to lay down our lives for Jesus? physical sense of those lives. You know, at one point Jesus said, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Matthew, Mark, and Luke, all three of those gospel writers include that, so it must have been pretty important, pretty significant, because it registered so much with those. And Luke adds the word daily, take up his cross daily, and follow me. What else is deny yourself? And to die, right? That's that call to lay down your life. And if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, die to self. That's what John Calvin said is the essence of Christian faith and the walk of faith. Mortification of the flesh. That's how Calvin puts it. Dying to ourselves and to our flesh. That's what we're called to do. That's how we die for Jesus. And that's how we can show the greatest love for Jesus. It's by putting Him first and getting ourselves out of the way. The only problem with this is, we have this thing in each one of us. I know I do. I've been each one of you. It's called sin. It wants to focus on ourselves and what's in it for me. And we find it even in the church, or sometimes people come, oh, what's in it for me at the church? This is all about me. What can I get out of this and all that? It's not about me. It's about Jesus and what we can do. Have you laid down your life, got yourself out of the way, denied yourself? Have you laid down your life for Him? Have you given Him your time, your marriage? Or for those who aren't married, given Him whatever relationship that you're in and living in that relationship the way that God would want us to, not the way that our sexually charged culture would say is declining in all matters. What do you do with your money? Have you given that to Him? Or your attitudes? Or what you say on Facebook? All those kinds of things, right? And then how does all that carry over in how we express our love to one another? We may not need those glamorous headline stories of where we die physically to make that a reality, but if we are serious about denying ourselves, following Jesus in that way, laying down our lives for Him, do that for Him, it's going to extend to one another too. I don't know if you remember, I remember when I was in child Sunday school, the definition of joy, right? Jesus first, others second, yourself last. Right? That's dying, laying down. I don't know about you, I don't put a whole lot of stock in Chinese fortune cookies. Okay? You go to a Chinese restaurant and you get the thing, sometimes the most important thing that Maggie and I do, we flip it over on the back, we have the lucky numbers. And our game is you add up all the numbers, and whoever has the highest number picks up the tab. Well, I don't know. Anyway, whoever has the highest number wins or something. But anyway, once in a while on the other side, there might be something there that makes you think, or it might have a little element of truth to it. So here's one that I got some time ago. I said, hang on to this. It says, to live your life in fear of losing it is to lose the point of life. To live your life in fear of losing it is to lose the point of life. Or think of how Jesus said that. And once again, here's a statement that Jesus says in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. All three of those gospel writers include this. So this one must be important too. Jesus said, whoever wants to save their life, lose it. But whoever loses their life for me, will save it. It's counterintuitive. Because our tendency is to want to save what lives and protect. It's the gospel truth. That's what Jesus says. Jesus laid down His life for us. It cost Him. That's that laid down life. And Jesus calls us to lay down our lives for Him, to deny ourselves and follow Him, and to do that for one another, putting others first. Let's extend that to one another. Remember, we are chosen and called by God. We are His. Let us serve let's live out that friendship. And add to what it says, we made it our lives. Let's pray. Father, we thank you that you sent your Son Jesus, that he did lay down his life for us so that we could be forgiven, made right in your sight,